Today we're going to be talking about Kanye West and his scheme with the Republican Party to siphon votes away from Joe Biden, another bombshell development with Trump's postmaster general giving himself even more power at the Postal Service, and my interview with former presidential candidate Andrew Yang, where we talk about the need for a cabinet-level position on technology and whether he'd be interested, the importance of getting cash payments to the American people, and how to convert his supporters into Biden supporters in November. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. So today I want to talk about Kanye West because apparently one malignant narcissist in the political sphere wasn't enough. And there's part of me that cannot believe I have to talk about Kanye West on my podcast. And then there's another part of me who can absolutely believe I have to talk about Kanye West on my podcast. We live in hell. Okay, so here's what happened. We heard grumblings of a Kanye West run for president in the last few months, but it seemed that everyone, myself included, kind of just cast it off as a stunt, right? Because this is what Kanye does. In 2018, Kanye surfaced just long enough to claim that slavery was a choice, and then he made headlines before dropping his album Ye. In 2016, the hill he decided to die on was that accused rapist Bill Cosby was innocent. And then he dropped The Life of Pablo. So I think when Kanye announced a presidential run on Twitter on the 4th of July, we were all basically like, okay, cool, where's the album? Which is fine, right? Like, who cares? Sure, do your usual PR bullshit, get your headlines, and sell your album. Fine. But then a woman named Lane Ruland was seen dropping off signatures for Kanye in Madison, Wisconsin. And Lane Ruland is a top Republican election lawyer, meaning that the Republican Party is working to ensure that Kanye West is on the ballot. And we saw similar attempts in New Jersey, in Illinois, in Colorado, again, all led by Republican operatives. Now, there are so many things wrong here. The most obvious being that this is a blatant plot by the Republican Party to try and steal the election by sticking a celebrity on the ballot who they think is going to be able to siphon votes from Joe Biden. Like, how sad that your strategy to win is to shoehorn a spoiler in there. Just think for a second how little that says about their own candidate that they need to try and do this. And this is a spoiler who can't even win. It's too late for Kanye to get on enough ballots in enough states to even hit 270 electoral votes. So what's he even doing? He's literally just a spoiler. He's only there as a tool to siphon votes. But also, you don't have to take my word for it because Kanye admitted it. During an interview with Forbes, he indicated that he was in fact running to siphon votes from Joe Biden. And when he was called out on not being able to reach 270 electoral votes, he replied to the interviewer, quote, "I'm not going to argue with you." He then went on to claim that he's designing a school within the next month and is also meeting with Betsy DeVos about the post-COVID curriculum. So if Betsy DeVos overseeing the American education system wasn't enough for you, now you can throw in Kanye West. Like, yeah, our kids are doomed. There's also the issue here of Kanye's mental health issues, right? Like, Kim Kardashian came out and said that he's bipolar. So what's happening then is that the Republican Party is exploiting someone with mental illness to try and help their own candidate. Like, I don't know what else I can say to convey the depravity of that move. But I also don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that Kanye has no agency here. His whole life, he's been a massive star, but all of a sudden, because Kim says he's bipolar, that he has zero agency and we have to treat him with kid gloves and that no shots are allowed. Like, I have zero intention of going easy on Kanye West, who is actively and knowingly undermining Joe Biden's candidacy to serve as a spoiler in an election that he admitted he can't win. If the Kardashian family is that concerned with his mental illness, then help him. And that doesn't mean sitting idly by or making excuses while he sets the world on fire because of some underhanded Republican scheme. If he needs help, again, help him. And beyond that, there's also the inherent racism that comes with assuming that because Kanye's black, he'll be able to pull black support from Biden. And that's the goal, right? Like, let's be honest here. The goal by Republicans propping up Kanye isn't to reach 65 and up white women. Like, his demo is young people and people of color. So for the Trump campaign to just assume that he'll be useful in stealing those black votes from Biden because Kanye's black is pretty racist, right? And the pushback here is that, that target demo, young people and black people, aren't going to be fooled into voting for Kanye. And look, do I think that the vast majority of Americans, white, black, young, and old, can see beyond this scheme, like beyond the obvious Republican-led plan to use Kanye to siphon votes away from Biden? Of course I do. But remember, Trump only won Wisconsin in 2016 by 22,000 votes, while third-party candidates took 188,000 votes. And none of those third-party candidates were named Kanye West. So we all might pay attention to politics, but not everyone in this country does. But with that said, the point here is to make sure that as many people as possible know about what's happening, so that the Republican plan out in the open to trick voters doesn't work. That the young people and the people of color that the GOP is so obviously targeting know what's happening and how they're being exploited. The point is to show that these blatant efforts to undermine our democracy, in service of Donald Trump no less, fail with the magnitude that they deserve to fail. Now, I want to talk about one more thing, and I know I spoke about this last week, but there's been an update with the US Postal Service that's serious enough to warrant going back into it for a second week in a row. And that is that Louis DeJoy, Trump's Postmaster General, has created a new hierarchy at the post office, displacing the top 2 executives who had overseen day-to-day operations and reassigning 23 other executives, creating a structure within the USPS that centralizes power around himself. In other words, ensuring that he not only has all the power to continue sabotaging the service he's overseeing, but that there's no recourse from anyone else at USPS. So DeJoy will continue to make his changes, like eliminating overtime and creating unmanageable backlogs of mail, so that when Americans inevitably vote by mail in massive numbers in the November election, there's no way their ballots arrive on time. Like, who knows how many ballots would be left behind? So, in effect, the intent can only be to destroy the election. Like, what if only 25% of ballots arrive and 75% are in transit because of delays, right? Like, it's not even that this would help one candidate over the other. It's that this would destroy our ability to have any faith in the outcome of the election. This is how Republicans will discredit the results of the election, by ensuring that we can't know who wins. Like, Trump is so toxic on the ballot, they can't risk having any semblance of a legitimate election. So they're just going to try to blow the whole thing up from the inside now. Like, if nothing is done here, this is the greatest voter suppression campaign in American history. The election will basically become void, and that is what Trump wants. That is the point of all this. And that development was immediately followed by more reporting saying that the Trump team is now considering what executive actions Trump can take to hurt mail-in voting. And that includes everything from directing the Postal Service to not deliver certain ballots to stopping local officials from counting them after Election Day. And all of that is in addition to the ongoing lawsuits across the country to challenge voting rules and, of course, Trump's own calls to delay the election. So taken together, what we have is a large-scale, coordinated effort to sabotage voting at literally every step in the process. From lawsuits preventing mail-in voting from being allowed, to Trump's lackey, Louis DeJoy, purposefully stopping the mail from arriving, to trying to take executive action to ensure that votes aren't counted even if they do arrive. And look, I've always been a proponent of people being able to put pressure on Republicans. Like, people calling Republican lawmakers and senators are the reason that we still have the ACA. But what we as regular people can do has our limits. And the fact is that the GOP is beyond being swayed by a public pressure campaign. Like, we're beyond being able to shame Republicans into doing what's right. And not only that, the whole process is designed to help them, to keep their party in power. So if you think that they're going to respond to any public pressure, you're kidding yourself. So the fact is that congressional Democrats need to act. They need to do something about this today, yesterday. If we wait until October or November to figure this out, it'll be too late. Like, this is already happening. This is not theoretical. It's reality. It's happening right now. So congressional Democrats need to act. They need to use their inherent contempt powers to bring DeJoy to testify, and to do it now, not in mid-September when he's supposed to come and he'll have 6 weeks to continue sabotaging the Postal Service. It needs to be now. They need to pass legislation codifying timely mail delivery, even if that means paying overtime. And they need to include USPS funding in any forthcoming relief bill. So if relief is going to be passed, then full funding for USPS needs to be there, and it needs to be non-negotiable. And trust me, there's going to be a relief bill, because Trump is on the ballot, and nothing will destroy the GOP faster than delivering zero relief to the American people in the middle of a pandemic and a recession. So whatever can be done needs to be done. The government should be grinded to a halt if that's what needs to happen here. Like, the fact is that we're doing our part. Americans are busting our asses to organize and register voters and request mail-in ballots, but something needs to be done in Congress so that this isn't all for nothing, so that all of our efforts aren't just completely undermined by some despot looking to burn it all down. So call your representatives, leave messages, tweet at them, whatever it takes to get their attention and focus that attention on this issue. Because if ever there was a time for Democrats not to be weak, it's right now. To listen to my interview with Andrew Yang, check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week. You've been listening to No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, produced by Sam Graber, music by Wellesley, interviews edited for YouTube and Facebook by Nick Nicotera, and recorded in Los Angeles, California. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your preferred podcast app, feel free to leave a 5-star rating and a review, and check out briantylercohen.com for links to all of my other channels.